Good morning. Are you excited? I am excited for a lot of reasons. You would have thought I would have been discouraged, but you know, I love you all so much that I kept trudging through. A couple days ago, eating my favorite meal, I cracked my back wisdom tooth. Oh yeah, you know, and for show and tell, I'll show it to you later. Then I was coming into church so happy to be here, it's great. And you're fumbling with the keys, and one of them moths that were up there in the eaves, now they tell me, little poisonous venom just came right down on me, hit me right there, big red rash. Right? Itches. So I get over to Carol Baker's house, and I'm sitting there after feeding her kitties, and some flea or something hit me on the back of the leg. True story. But I said, nope, nothing is going to take the place of the joy of coming to be with all of you, for whatever. And I do thank you for being who you are. There's a story I'd like to tell you about. The minister gets a phone call from someone. Hello? Is this the Reverend Dana Castleman? I am. And are you the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church? I am. And is that the church that's at 6th Avenue and Fulton Street? It is. And this is the IRS. Do you have a member in your church, or are you aware of a man named Albert Hollingsworth? I am. And is Albert Hollingsworth an active attendee and member? He is. And so you know him very well. I do. Did Mr. Albert Hollingsworth donate $18,000 to your church last year? He will. So, you keep it simple, right? I mean, just keeping it simple. You've heard the phrase, keep it simple, stupid. I was an apprentice, if you will. I don't even know if I was the one learning in a stained glass class. And my teacher had a gruff way about him, heart of gold, but a very gruff way about him. And he said, if you are my helper, I'm going to teach you how to bevel, and I'm going to teach you how to etch glass. Okay, I really wanted to do that because I love glass. And then, not that tool, stupid. That one over there, you should know that by now. And I didn't mind. I didn't mind being that person. I'm going to learn bevel, keep the eye on the prize. And I did. We often get caught up in complexities. And I really want to thank Eduardo for all the time you helped me with my car that I was ready to trade in because I couldn't get my music. And I realized something. I'm listening to music. We got music in my car. So what? Whose it is? So what? It's music. It's better than nothing. And it's pretty good. I'm getting a wide variety. And thanks to you for all you did. Now, anybody here have had this experience that I've had where I'm sure you know this story. My son was about 9 years old. He did not want to play in the Little League. 10 years, I think he was 10 years old. And his mother and I pushed him along. You should play in the Little League. Push him along. Come on, play in the Little League. You'll be glad, right? Well, He didn't want to necessarily, but he really liked the game. Well, you would never believe it, but the pitcher walked him because at the time he was so little that the strike zone was way down. And so the pitcher walked him. He got on. Well, another batter, after my son got on first base, hit the ball really hard. And it was a hit. And running. I mean, and the person who hit the ball in the batter's box was actually catching up to my son. He wasn't running fast. No, he was trying, but he was like catching him. What do you do when the person in front of you doesn't move quick enough? So everybody said, run home, go ahead, Johnny, run home, Johnny, run home. To which I guess he just heard that, run home. So he ran through the parking lot and to the house. We saw him on the porch. He had done what he was told to do. Well, keep it simple, stupid, right? Trying to complicate things. Like, have you ever wondered why there's so many denominations in this country? There's a lot. Well, one of the things that I've learned is that the Roman Catholic Church has missionaries all over the world, and churches and monasteries. You ever wonder why? Because they were first. They sent out their missionaries first. And they went to lands and helped people in all kinds of circumstances. So the reason that they're so large is because they were first. Then there came other kinds of Protestant denominations, some larger than others. Like there's more Methodists than there are Presbyterians, only because of the same thing, that they put their missionaries and ministers out there. One of the things that I've learned that in Methodism, we had something called circuit riders. Now, a circuit rider is somebody that sits on a horse and goes from town to town, gets off, preaches at some church, gets back on the horse, and goes to the next place, and the next place, and the next place. John Wesley, all of 4'11", wrote 25,000 volumes of theology on the horse. True story. I'm not making that up. Now, Presbyterians were a little bit highbrow. They wanted all the ministers to be seminary trained. So those that couldn't make it didn't get to be Presbyterian ministers, and they had fewer. So that's what led to more Methodists on the frontier happening than Presbyterians. It's pretty simple. I was invited one Memorial Day to march in the Memorial Day parade of the local community, and I thought it was a hoot. I even brought my dog, Milo. We're walking along, and people are waving at us. And well, before that was a man right next to me. He was a man who was a congressman. I didn't know who he was, and he was running for Senate. At the time, so was another popular man named Cory Booker. And I said to him, wow, you're in a runoff in the primary for the Senate seat against Cory Booker. Oh, yes, he said, that's going to be quite an experience. I said, but it doesn't seem that you have much chance to beat him, because Cory Booker was very popular in New Jersey. I wanted to hear what he had to say about these. Well, we're trying our best. And I said, listen, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that he's really popular and he's way up there in the polls and you're way down. So, how do you think you... Well, everybody started to laugh. What's so funny? I often say things where that people laugh at. I don't know why they're laughing. But that's my problem. But anyway, they were laughing. Then one of his aides, this congressman's aides, came to me and said, the reason we're laughing is because you said you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. I said, that's right. Well, before he became a congressman, he was a rocket scientist. And that's a true story. I said, you're kidding me. Nah, we wouldn't kid you about that. Well, what I've learned over the years is that you look on TV. Now, imagine your favorite TV televangelist, mega church minister. Most of them are not trained. They're not educated. They're called, they say. They're not seminary graduates. And maybe it says something about, who's more effective. I told people in my life, the people that influenced me the most were inmates in prison who had no degrees of any kind. They taught me a great deal about preaching, because the way they preached was in the moment. I shudder to think what that would be like. And they insisted, don't go get up there and preach to us with paper. Notice how I went back to paper. But they had no qualifications that one would say, oh, that's really a minister. If you think that approach to preaching is a little unsophisticated for a learned church, let's say a learned church like ours, for me to hasten to say to you that I didn't come to you with eloquence or superior wisdom, for I resolved to know nothing while I was with you. I came, like most people, trepidatiously in weakness, with much trembling. And my message and my preaching are not just wise and persuasive words. Nope. But the demonstration of the power of the Holy Spirit. So your faith might rest not on wisdom, but on fact. And that's what compelled me. Now, looking at a thing that people would say, theology can be challenged at times. There are some people that don't have sound theology. I call it emotional theology. They want it to fit, so they make it fit. That's what religion does. And whenever I'm in a crowd, I find it interesting. Really. I'm there with doctors, lawyers. I'm there with other professional people, some architects, people who have degrees in different areas of life. But nobody ever comes over to them and asks them to prove God or to ask them about jurisprudence. Nobody talks about their professions. But when they see a minister in their presence, they want to know what my theology is and how sound it was, so that they could somehow understand it in just that brief little period of time between the first martini cocktail and the second. Well, I can't do that. Now, if you've experienced in your life things, fear, let's say, there was this, most of us are governed by fear. It's not faith. We talk a good game about faith, but when it comes down to it, we are governed by fear. We're anxious. And you must admit, most of your life is filled with anxious fear more than it is with confident faith. It just is. Now, I don't know how to change that except to say to you, I'm with you. It's me too. I like everything to be in place, and I like all the problems solved. Anybody here, you can raise your hand. Anybody here have no problems at all? None. Not one problem. See, everybody has lots of problems, and some of them are really, really deep problems. Now, there's no reason to hide behind language that's, did you ever wonder why ministers are highbrow? Did you ever wonder why some ministers preach a certain way? And, I didn't understand that. It was, words that are very, very sophisticated. As you know, I'm talking about the kind of ministers that, they go way up into the clouds, and I guess they feel better. Did you ever wonder why they do that? They don't do that so that you will feel impressed by them. They do it, I think, because they're afraid of you. They're afraid that you're going to find out about them, that they're not any better than you are, and that they are, that they have an ominous responsibility of communicating something to you that they may or may not want to hear. Now, I'd like you to tell me, and you could, how many people here, just raise your hands, think that I'm a different person when I'm talking to you one-on-one and rather than me standing right here? How many people here think I'm a different person? You do, Bill? You think I'm different? Well, okay, one, two. How many people here think that I'm the same person here as if I'm just talking to you? Oh, okay. You know, there's a lot of people that didn't vote. One of the things that I was told by this man right here, advice I will never forget: be yourself and don't lie. Well, okay. If it doesn't work, hey, here's the keys. We're out of here. But if it does work, it's all good. Be yourself. Most clergy can't do that. There's too much at stake. I remember a couple that they were so great. They were both illiterate, husband and wife. And they wanted to be identified with our church. And at the time, there was something going on called a heavy metal band. I don't know, you know that kind of music, right? Well, they found something that looked like our church. So it said United. They thought it was the United Methodist Church because it had an M right after it. United M. And then they walked in. Both of them had the same shirt. United Metal Company. And, you know, and nobody knew how to maybe say, well, wait a minute, that didn't quite get it with the... So other people in church started wearing shirts saying United Metal Company with them to identify and say, you're welcome here. Took a lot for the people to do that. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to testify to the power of Unitarian Universalism. We have 7 principles that are worth defending and standing up for. Tell it plainly. I would love to hear criticism from anybody who says, you need to do this, you need to do that. As long as I can do it to you. You need to do this and you need to do that. Nah, see, that's a whole different ballgame. But keep it simple. And a man, about 20 years ago, he's at the top of a building, and the police are there. And he had a problem with his girlfriend. He thought his life wasn't worth living. However, something was different about this young man. He was deaf. And the police tried to use the bullhorn, don't do it, don't do it. And they sent a loud message, no avail. He couldn't hear it. But one policeman tried a different tact. He went all the way up to where that man was, and he began talking to him in sign language. Anybody here know sign language? Anybody? See, I was hoping. Boy, that's a hope dashed. Not one person knows sign language. But let me tell you, of all the languages in the world, the one that is the most growing language is sign language, because it's universal and people understand it no matter what language they speak. Sign language. Well, he did that, and he talked him out of jumping off the building. And how could he do that? Well, he reached him because he spoke his language. Now, we need to do that too. We need to know that people who are other traditions, they believe just as passionately in what they're doing as we do about what we're doing. And it doesn't help anybody for any one of them to tear somebody else down in the attempts to build yourself up. It won't work anyway. And to the weak I become weak, it said. I might win weak people over. I become all things to all people, that I might love some of them. Well, I came to you in weakness and fear. I came to you in a broken state, trembling. I mean, you think about this for a second. It's enormous responsibility. Can I pull it off? Can I do it? Took every ounce of energy, and I'm real happy to say, because of the ping pong ball effect, you know, I'm here, I'm important, I'm here, I'm important. I wouldn't change a thing. And I'm really grateful to all of you for being the people that you are. That, to me, is the demonstration of the power of the human spirit. Now, we all know that communication is difficult. It is very difficult. I must say, there was this one story about a woman named Eileen, and she was from Maine. And she went on a mission project to Kenya. Now, I've been to Kenya. And she met a lot of people there. Some of the, their skin is very dark, and she was very pale. So they wanted to see if some of that might rub off. They were just curious, because they had not seen anybody that was that pale. And they wanted to greet her. They wanted her to feel welcome. So they kept calling her Jumbo and Super. Actually, they were calling her Jumbo and Super. And she went to the guide, the interpreter, and said, you know, I know that I need to lose weight. They don't have to call me Jumbo and Super. And everybody there laughed. She said, what are you laughing at? Well, in Swahili, Jumbo means hello, and Super means hello very much. So it has nothing to do with your weight. Oh, it is difficult. Under the best of circumstances, we were that close to losing the Second World War to the Germans. And thank goodness for people like Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt and some of these leaders who saved our world because of the dominance of Adolf Hitler. That's just that side. Forget about Japan. Well, they're sitting down in a meeting, and it's really interesting. They said, well, let's table this. Now, our version of tabling it is what? Raise your hand. When you say, let's table this. What? Come back to it again. In Great Britain, when you table something, you put it on the table, and you talk about it there. So they were really, really upset and confused when the American delegation walked out. And just like, I've been to Great Britain. Anybody here been to Great Britain? Oh, nice, nice. Well, a fella comes over to me and says, you got a fag for me? What, you want a fag? No, not particularly. He said, well, I really love American fags better than British fags. That's nice to know. I said, why? I said, because it tastes better. Get away from me, you're disgusting. And they were telling me about cigarettes. Did you know that a fag is a cigarette? Here I am almost rolling in the street with this guy because I felt he was insulting it. Well, communication. How many times have you been miscommunicated with? Misunderstood? Lots of times. The judge says to the bailiff, the fellow, he reads the note, blind on the right side may be falling. Please call somebody. Well, the EMS came and all the sirens were blaring. They didn't understand. What are you talking about? Well, the judge was pointing out that the Venetian blind on the right side was loose and it needed maintenance. The Venetian blind was falling. Well, Anyway, communication is very difficult. It's very hard to be effective, and it's very critical. How many marriages fail because couples lose their ability to communicate? How many families are in distress because parents and their children fail to communicate? I remember, when are you going to get a haircut? I say to my son, Dad, you don't have any hair, right? I mean, it's like a whole different world. I mean, sure, we can love each other, but it's communication. How many hurting people could be helped if somebody would take the time to simply communicate with them? We've lost that art, I think. I mean, a dear friend of mine said he had, you know, he went into this deli. The guy made some pretty good deli sandwiches. And the fellow's name was Jim. And Jim would chat about, you know, nothing really, but then he would say things are really deeply troubling him. The business isn't going well, and he was having a tough time. And my friend, as a minister, said, oh, yeah, make an appointment, and, yeah, let's talk about that. Well, after a while, he didn't see Jim around anymore. When he went in to get his deli sandwich, whatever happened to Jim? Well, Jim killed himself. He committed suicide. And he felt terrible about that. Why didn't he talk to him when he came and talked to him that time, or many times? Why hadn't I asked more questions when he mentioned what he was going through and how hard it was? See, in the moment is what it really mattered. It's not when it's convenient for everybody. And I mean, we have to have some kind of order, but in the moment. Communication is very difficult, but it's critical. Communication of the 7 points is our primary responsibility. Many ways to communicate. I mean, what is the best way to communicate? It's a give and take. You don't have the right to just sit there. Yes! By listening. Thank you. Listening is the most powerful form of communication. To your spouse, to your kids, to your employee or your employer, to your neighbors. And when you listen and actually hear them, you communicate by listening. Communicate. You know, most people are not really listening. They're waiting till that person stops talking so they can keep going. I mean, that's the truth. The important thing is to realize you don't have to be a scholar to share your love. You don't have to be a person of great eloquence. You don't have to have education or even intelligence. If you've experienced that power in your life, tell it. If you have love in your heart, live it. And I'm going to change it. You know, it says, keep it simple, stupid. I'm going to say, keep it simple, saints. Amen.